Hey, and good day to everyone. In this episode of Growing Your Tree of Prosperity, I'm going to do a shallow dive into UOB Kay Hian. This is a continuation of the previous video episode where I've flagged ComfortDelGro and UOB Kay Hian as two stocks being flagged by IFAS as potential winners from the EQDP scheme. All right, so let's dive into UOB Kay Hian today. And this is a Singapore-based brokerage and investment firm that provides securities trading, investment banking, wealth management, and research services across Asian and global markets. All right, so it's like a broker. And the main revenue source is securities broking, with secondary revenues generated from structured lending. All right, it's a little bit like a bank, like a pseudo bank, and it's a fairly big company. Market cap is 2.32 billion. The price to book value is approximately 1.1. All right, not too expensive. The PE is very reasonable at 11.1 and very high profit margins. And this is a relatively cheap value play, and it receives tailwinds from the equity development program. All right, equity markets development program. And let's look at the cash flow. It pays once in June every year, about 1.19 cents this year. The forward dividend yield is about 5% at the current rate. All right, but do note that there should be some concerns as the free cash flow cannot sustain the dividend payouts in 2024, but it has been sustaining them in the years before that. So I got AI to actually tell me a little bit about why the cash flow from operations is a negative number last year. It says that very likely the cash was trapped in client-related receivables. That means clients owe you money, you continue to provide services to them, but you do not collect money, all right? And that's why, from an operating perspective, there is a cash outflow, all right? Actually, it sounds a little bit serious, right? So this is something that I want to be fixated at when we talk about UOB Kay Hian, all right? Now, if you discount that, it's a decent dividends play, a value play, and a play on this stimulus from MAS. Okay, all right, so let's look at some historical returns. It's done fairly well. Okay, 22% for the past 5 years with a fairly low standard deviation. Maximum drawdown of 20% is on the low side. Okay, and positive skew. All right, positive skew. It has a tendency to melt up. All right, which is almost like a 4D or total kind of investment. Okay, and it has a very low correlation with the STI at 0.28, which means that if you were to buy the usual dividend stocks like banks and REITs, UOB Kay Hian would be an excellent diversification target. Okay, so how do you think about this company? All right, I find out that there's actually very little coverage of this stock. Maybe analysts don't want to offend the bosses, right? Because this is, after all, a brokerage company. We do expect trading volume to improve, right? Thanks to EQDP. Okay, its strengths are strong market leadership in the brokerage space, high dividends, profit margins, and decent valuations. The weakness is a negative recent cash flow from operations. Okay, and the thing is that our local brokerages do tend to have technical infrastructure that is lagging behind, for example, all your Mumu, your Tiger brokers, and interactive brokers. All right, so that might be a concern. And brokerage income can also be cyclical, ups and downs. All right, there's some opportunities in wealth management, M&A, and definitely further digitalization can benefit the broker. But the question is, whether are they willing to invest the money to do this, right? Given that some of their clients might be very old school people with a lot of money. Okay, and the backdrop is that it's also facing this rivalry from fintech companies as well as newer brokerage platforms from China. Okay, so what do you need to do before you make a decision about UOB Kay Hian? It looks like a gem of a stock that is cheap, it generates good yields, but I think you might want to hold on to see what happens to cash flow from operations. Is it going to turn positive in 2025? Are the monies owed or tied up in receivables, for example, do they eventually get turned into actual cash or they need to be written off in the future. All right, so this will be the number one issue that I think should lead to further questions. Or if you're interrogating an analyst report on UOB Kay Hian, this needs to be resolved. All right. You might also want to read more when they talk about the brokerage business in Singapore. How are brokerage businesses fending off against newer custodian brokers like Mumu and Tiger Brokers? Right. I cannot imagine a Gen Z investor who has a little bit of money. Can you imagine them actually signing up with a traditional broker, opening a CDP account, and then putting their stocks there, right? So that's probably quite hard to come by. All right, so that's something you want to think about, okay? And if you are convinced that traditional brokers still have a role to play in the economy, then by all means pull the trigger, okay? Otherwise, who knows, right? You might be stepping into a value trap, okay? All right, so if you want to help me, you should like my YouTube channel, buy me a coffee here. If you want to listen to my life story, you can Google ERM intro, take the first link, and come for my next course preview. I'll be spending about 1.5 hours to talk about my life. All right, and that's all I have for you. All right, thank you very much.